Hey, welcome back to part 3 of Soma Psyche series that we're doing on the body and time. You have 2 whiteboards now, so you're getting a little glimpse into why at Beyond we love whiteboards. This video is going to be more oriented towards understanding how we at Beyond, we have a case conceptualization model helping clinicians understand the session-to-session experiences of what they're doing with their clients, as well as the arc of therapy with their clients, and doing that through images and through a lot of integration of kind of metapsychological theories from neuroscience to relational and interpersonal science. We have this model, and I don't have time to go into all of the nuances. So today we're just gonna, and you'll have to bear with me, maybe I'm saying this more for myself, is that we're gonna just be okay with a broad level of right and left hemispheres and just kind of feeling the difference of time as we're processing information from the right to left hemispheres of the brain. Last video, we talked about the depth of every moment and how you can do kind of a deep dive into what are all of the spatial experiences that a person has in an event of time. So the example we used was like a dog coming and jumping on you and you petting it and feeling regulated. Like there's moments in time where you can drop down into a world of experience at any point. In this episode, what we're gonna look at is how does that make sense in conceptualizing therapy in this felt sense of differences in time, those sessions that seem to just fly by, and then those sessions where when we're diving deep into the somatic experience of life with our clients, how that can feel like there's a lot of space is the language that we've been using. There's a lot of room in 50 minutes or 90 minutes. So we conceptualize the human, the mammalian organism as a triangle. So if you're familiar with our podcasts or our trainings, this will be familiar. If not, bear with us. If there's breadcrumbs to follow, please reach out. We would love to talk to you. But we conceptualize the mammalian organism as a triangle, and noting that there's a series of evolutionary and specific to human dynamics from the brain developing bottom up, right, left, and kind of noticing that in kind of 3 distinct parts. So the brain develops bottom up, right to left. And when we talk about working with the body, what we're trying to do as clinicians is understand how can we go with the natural flow of processing information that the brain and the body naturally engage in, which again is bottom up, right, left. One of the things that stood out to Mel and I with this graph was that if you just stuck with A and you were just talking about A and all you talked about was A, but you didn't do a deep dive, you just had them repeating this story about A, or maybe it's A, B, and C, but it's just all on the surface. That has very little experience integrated into the story. So the story is relatively short. So the left hemisphere articulation is really running off of very little information from the right hemisphere. It's a very small amount. So the way we would conceptualize that is it's just a little loop. Now, I have very felt experiences in my body, even now, just talking about that, of sessions where I have spent 50 minutes with a client and all they have done is repeat small loops over and over again. Yeah. And it, like, at times even feeling a little bit dissociative of just like, I don't know if I'm bored or just like I really want to jump into deeper dynamics, but it doesn't feel appropriate. And so the client is just telling story after story, but it's not integrating a lot of them, which material. Is like, it's not integrating a lot of their sensed experience. It's just talking about something. And really what we're aiming at when we're looking at how do we talk about C with integrating the depth of integration from A and B, when we've dropped down, what we're talking about is making a bigger loop, really expanding how much information we're tapping into from the right hemisphere. And you can think of the right hemispheres, and this is very broad, very generalized. There's a lot of nuance here, but the right hemisphere as being very oriented towards interoceptive sensed experience, as well as the relational encounter of other bodies. So really, you can think of the 5 senses or the 6 or 7 senses debatably as the right hemisphere is processing that. So if all we're talking about is like I ate ice cream. I ate ice cream has very little experience in it. But if I say I licked chocolate ice cream that was like malty and smooth, cold to the tongue, that
on a hot summer's day with my best friend with me.
On a hot summer's day with my best friend with me. Okay, so that's just right hemisphere. The story then that I can make out of that, the meaning, is going to be totally different than if I just said, I ate ice cream yesterday.
Yeah.
So
I think the reason why this ends up feeling so important as a therapist, wanting to do work with our clients that is going to actually have an impact and make some difference. Because I think all of us experience the frustration of sessions that we just do those little loops over and over, and we're not really sure, like, did we get any traction? Like, did we make any difference here? As opposed to those moments in time where something happens, and even if it didn't feel like, oh man, this was the mother lode, this was the thing that we've been waiting to get to, and yet there's such a richness of exploration. What's happening is that we're taking an experience and really fully exploring the right hemisphere elements of it and allowing a story to emerge that encompasses and integrates all of that. And it is so interesting how much meaning can be found, how much richness of life begins to naturally occur when our clients begin to learn how to do this. So I'll share a really easy example.
Yeah.
So in a training that I recently did, and then I did it with a group of our clinicians here, an exercise that we use to explore this, and everybody's going to do this the minute that I say this, and that's okay. The exercise is close your eyes and attempt to count the number of windows in your home. And then you explore not how many windows do you have, because that's just left hemisphere information. Like, cool, there's 19 windows in your house. Neat. Not super interesting. What is interesting is how did you go about deciding and enacting this internal process of counting the windows in your home? What did you do in there, right? So that's one example. And so when I did this with somebody, this beautiful moment emerged where she decided to begin the counting process with her kitchen window. And I felt, and asked her if she did too, very curious about why the kitchen window? Why out of all the windows in the home? So this is when a tiny loop of, I started the kitchen window and it ended up in 19. Little loop, neat, shoulder shrug, not that interesting. But when we know how to deepen into a particular moment with her clients, what we discovered was she chose the kitchen window because when they moved into that home, that was the one window that they had decided to replace. And they made it how they wanted it. And she sees it as a beautiful window. And it lets her look out into her backyard and see where her children play and see the tree line of the forest that she loves behind her home. Oh my gosh. Now we're in full right brain, deep exploration. And it all emerged from which window did you pick? Yeah. Right. And so this one very practical moment of life has so much depth and richness. And she was entirely unaware of this subconscious, deeply emotional process that she had gone through to make this selection. And at the end of that, when I asked her, like, what was that like? How did that feel? She had this big smile on her face and she said, I feel fantastic. And described it as almost having a theta wave experience. The reason is because entering into the terrain of the right hemisphere shows us the richness of our own internal world. And is incredibly illuminating of like, oh, this is what I am. As a mammal, as a creature, as an individual, this is how much depth and richness I hold in my processes. And the story that got integrated into the left hemisphere was so different than, oh yeah, I did this exercise where I counted my windows and it was 19. Yeah. It was, I love my home and my favorite spot is looking out my kitchen window because I love watching my children play and I love seeing the trees. So this huge, rich story emerges because we knew how to descend into the somatic richness of that moment in time.
Yeah. And I love it. I love something simple and pragmatic about the windows, because it's like, if you were to ask me right now and I didn't engage any right hemisphere experiencing, I didn't imagine the sensory experience of walking through the home, then I would say, I don't know, maybe like 15
You'd
to 20.
guess.
15 to 20.
Yes.
Which is, that is the left hemisphere, like making a rough estimate guess, because it doesn't have a lot of sensory experience in that thought.
Yeah.
But if I imagine walking through the house and literally engaging the sensory experience and integrating, I get a much more meaningful and like integrated story.
Yes. Yeah.
That, well, I actually have 23 and a half windows. And like that, to then shift that to something that's maybe like we're reprocessing something traumatic, of like people saying things like, I don't know why this happened. I don't know why I did this. I don't know why this keeps happening like in my body, or why I keep experiencing this. It's like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's just a low loop. We need to,
or a lopsided loop, right?
Yes,
Where the client either doesn't know how or doesn't feel safe to explore the right of it. And so their system keeps trying to go left, and we're not built to do that.
Yeah.
So if we have clients that are kind of perpetually saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, oftentimes it's because they are under-equipped or uncomfortable or feel unsafe to actually explore the material of the right, because that is where our knowing comes from.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the left knowledge comes from the right experience.
Yeah. Wisdom happens in the right.
Yeah. I love this conceptualization as like a felt experience of, sometimes I'll use the metaphor of space. Like, when you do the hard work of fighting the gravity of launching through the right, where you're feeling the weight of every moment and experiencing what it's like, then the meaning, the articulation, the actual shift in a person's story comes very easily. Like, once you've done the hard work of the right hemisphere, like maybe 10, maybe not even that, like maybe like 5 minutes is like all the left hemisphere needs to be like, oh, this makes so much sense.
Yeah, and because the knowing just emerges, there's this spontaneous articulation of the wisdom that the body just revealed to us. It's more of a sensation of recognition of, there's the truth. It's been there hiding in my body this whole time. There it is. And those moments in therapy, we call them moments of insight, aha moments, right? We have different names for it. But when it spontaneously emerges in that way, that's a sign of, oh, we've just integrated something that was hidden in the subconscious of the right hemisphere that now has emerged into consciousness and can be integrated into their self-narrative in a new way.
Yeah. Yeah. So then why is it important to engage the body? It's because you are utilizing time.
That's right.
Not time being kind of this rush of knowledge or story where it's just like, whew, it's gone. And I don't know, time flies by. It's like, let's slow down. Let's take 50 minutes can feel like eternity if we're tapped into the body.
That's right.
It can feel like a minute if we're just telling stories the whole time.
That's right. Well, and I think too, for me, the body is the secret keeper in the best and the worst way. And honoring that strategy, especially for those of us that have trauma in our history, means that we engage with it with this sensation of, I am venturing into this territory that holds the truth of who I am and why I have become who I am today. And I go with curiosity and the sensation of respect and sacredness, because we cannot know what is held there until we venture in there and actually start evoking the past and the present moment.
Re-membering.
Yes. Yeah. We are bringing back the bits of self that have been fragmented over time when we're doing trauma work. And I feel like we could do a whole nother video on that concept. We should probably.
And attachment in that, like your system is not going to re-experience that part of you because it learned that part of you shouldn't be and is not safe to experience. So then the attachment relationship, the therapist-client relationship becomes uber important for us to even make that loop possible.
Okay, so I'm going to end this video with a funny little bit of Beyond Healing trivia.
Okay.
You ready?
Oh,
I think that I might have told you this, but if I haven't, get ready to giggle.
okay.
So before Beyond Healing was what it was, before all of the people were here, I had another place called Beyond that I had with other therapists. And I spent a considerable amount of time before it was named trying to convince this group of therapists to call it Hinterlands. Because of this. Because of this deep knowing in my body that, number one, my work in life was to venture into the hinterlands of our internal experience and bring back the secrets that are held there. I was hands down overruled and told that no one would understand what in the world I was talking about. I have no regrets.
Get a very specific clientele, probably.
Yeah, that's probably true. And people that I really enjoy working with,
Totally.
most likely.
Yeah.
So Beyond Healing was almost called Hinterlands. I'm so sorry, but maybe not. And maybe we'll like resurrect that name.
I was going to say, I think we could
something
do
else.
a segment called
Hinterlands.
To Hinterlands and Beyond.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I like that. That feels good. But this is why.
Yes.
The somatic hinterlands of the way that we can investigate experience with clients and just unearth so much that is held that we don't even know about in our own bodies is profound and beautiful.
So beautiful.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us for these videos. We have one more in this series where I'm going to show one example of how you can do this in the moment deepening work with clients. And I'm choosing a demonstration that will show how to do it without any bells and whistles, any extra room space. You can do it, couch to couch, face to face, just with language, and it's still very effective. Because we know that not everybody has a beautiful yoga room that we can do movement with clients and things like that. And so we want to make it as practical as we can.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming up next. And thanks so much for being with us.